Hi guys. So I want to talk about something really serious today, and I'm going to give a trigger warning at the beginning that this is going to be a conversation about domestic violence. So if that is a trigger for you, please feel free to step outside the video. So I'm going to say ahead of time that what I am going to say is going to be controversial and people are going to take it the wrong way, and they're going to claim it's victim blaming, and it's not. Okay? What we're going to talk about today is risk management for avoiding domestic violence. Okay, so first of all, let me qualify a little bit. I do work with a lot of victims of domestic violence professionally. I also work with a lot of perpetrators of domestic violence professionally. For about 23 years now, I've been, exposed to and involved with those kind of people. So I'm not talking out of my ass. I am also a child of domestic violence. My biological father was extremely abusive to my mother. I saw him try to kill her more than once. He kidnapped me twice. We were on the run from him for a period of time. And after she got away from him, he did eventually murder the wife after him. So it was a very serious thing. It was very real, true domestic violence. This was, a very serious situation. So I am not speaking from a place of privilege of never having had any exposure to that, okay? So, like I said, people are going to say I'm about to victim blame, but that's not what I'm doing. What I'm talking about is how to mitigate your risk for ending up in these relationships, because while it should never, ever happen, there are things we can do to help avoid it, right? It's like everyone talks about that classic example of a woman who gets assaulted for walking half naked down a dark alley. Where you were and what you were wearing shouldn't cause you to get assaulted, and it's not your fault you got assaulted. But what we can do is practice risk management, right? Like, we can make good decisions about where we go and who we're with. I don't walk through dark alleys alone at night because I know it's dangerous. That's not victim blaming. That's just using some good common sense and trying to protect yourself, because God knows you can't trust these men. So my first piece of advice to you guys is bullies look for victims, right? And domestic violence perpetrators are bullies by nature. And whether we're talking about a playground bully or a man who beats his wife, all bullies look for victims. And if you put out an energy or an aura that you are not a victim, these men will just avoid you, right? Because there's easier prey, right? That they're going to look for the weak one in the herd. They're not going to go after the strongest woman. You have to legitimately and genuinely be functioning in a place of strength, because they know that they can't take you down. And this includes things like financial stability, right? Like, they will purposely seek out women who are less financially stable, because then they can hold finances over their head and they can control them with money. If you have your own money, you're financially stable, you have your own place, you keep separate finances from them, even after marriage, which is a whole nother conversation, but it's something I definitely recommend. The idea that you're a strong, financially independent person will scare off a lot of perpetrators just right off the bat. Okay, they don't want women who have the means to leave. So, yeah, that's probably the number one thing, is have a good career, have your own money, don't give them access to that, okay? Self-esteem, they look for people who have low self-esteem, and they can sense this. They can sense it like a shark senses blood in the water. You have to be genuinely happy with yourself, genuinely confident in yourself, believe that you're beautiful. Sorry guys, I got a phone call. So as I was saying, if you are a really self-confident, strong, independent type woman, these men don't want you, right? Like, you're too much of a challenge for them, and they're not going to go that. But you can't just fake it, right? You have to genuinely be confident, genuinely be independent, and genuinely be a woman who doesn't seem like she needs a man. Because you can be a beautiful career woman who has her life together, but if you still give off that desperation vibe, they will still go to you. If you still are the kind of woman who needs a man to be happy, they will figure that out. So you have to genuinely not be that kind of person, and that will go a long way toward avoiding these kinds of people, okay? You need boundaries, and you need to set those boundaries very early, right? Look at small pieces of behavior. A classic example, if a man is asking you out on a first date and he's like, hey, we're going to go out Wednesday at 8 o'clock, wear something cute. Okay, that's a controlling statement. Okay, that's not the way that works, right? A man who is not controlling would say, hey, are you available Wednesday? I would love to take you out. Would you like to go to this restaurant? Is 8 o'clock a good time for you? And he certainly wouldn't say anything about what you should wear or something like that. So set those boundaries early, that you're not going to allow that kind of control. If a man does it, that's an immediate red flag. You should immediately just walk away from that guy. These are men who want to control women. So look very early on for those small signs of control. My next piece of advice would be to go slow. just simply go slow. Don't rush into living together. Don't rush into marriage. Don't rush into having kids. Don't do anything, because people can only maintain a facade for so long. And there's this really common narrative in domestic abuse people where they say, well, he seemed so perfect. He seemed like this great guy, and then it just changed. In my opinion, and this is going to piss off somebody in the comments, I've been around a lot of domestic abuse survivors, and in every single situation there were early red flags, without a doubt. It's almost always within the first couple of months, right? Like, I've never seen one of these situations where he genuinely seemed like a good guy for 5 years and then just started beating the hell out of her, right? Like, it's always about ignoring warning signs. These people always give themselves away very early on, even if it's just by virtue of being overly nice, because they do that too. A guy who love bombs you, who barely knows you, and he's already heaping all of this praise and stuff on you, that's not normal. That's not healthy. That's not how healthy people form relationships. So you have to find someone who acts like a normal person, who isn't just trying to throw all of this attention and stuff on you, because normal people don't build relationships like that. Normal people go slowly, and they get to know each other, and they form friendships, and things grow at a normal rate. And if you're around somebody for a decent length of time, the cracks show. Always. People just cannot keep a facade up forever. So don't move in with this guy after 6 months. Don't marry him after a year. Don't have a baby at 18 months, with anybody. And let me say, I'm speaking as someone who has made the mistakes in certain ways, right? Like, although he was a great person, my late husband and I, we moved in together on the 3rd date, got a house 5 months later, and the rest was history. I just got very lucky. It was a bad decision. It happened. I beat the odds. But don't do those kind of behaviors. Take your time, get to know people, go slow, and watch the little things. And my biggest piece of advice is just to keep your eyes open and don't write things off. If it tweaks your nervous system, if it feels weird, if your spidey senses tingle, there's a reason, and don't ignore it. Women's intuition is an extremely strong tool, and we get ourselves in trouble when we ignore it. So things that I would look out for. This first one, again, is kind of controversial because I know a lot of good guys who do this, but I would still put it on the list. Driving behavior, right? So, like, my dad is the sweetest person on earth, and he's an aggressive driver. My ex, again, sweetest person on earth, he's kind of an aggressive driver. But I do consider aggressive driving or really heavy speeding to be a yellow flag. Let's put it that way. You need to watch and see if there's any other behaviors that surround that. How they deal with anger that isn't related to you. And again, yellow flag territory right now, right? My dad is the worst to yell and cuss at inanimate objects, right? Like, if he's trying to build something and he's struggling, he's the most unpleasant person on earth to be with. And my ex could be that way a little bit too. And again, those were very sweet guys. So I would put it in yellow flag behavior. But guys who throw things when they're angry. Not at you. I'm not talking about being angry at you at this point even. I'm just talking about they're trying to fix the car and they're getting irritated and they're throwing wrenches on the ground. Or they're punching walls because they're mad at something. Anything that is violent in nature, even if that violence isn't directed at a person, is a red flag. Obviously behavior toward animals, because that's living creatures. When you start seeing any kind of aggressive behavior with animals, now we're in true red flag territory, right? Because if he'll hit his dog, he'll hit you. Okay, it is what it is. So look for those things. Also look for how does he treat people? How does he treat wait staff? How does he treat people in lower social status to him? Anyone he considers himself above, how does he treat those people? How does he treat women in general? How does he talk about women? Like, if he's talking about his female coworker, what kind of tone of voice is he using? Like, I'm not saying he has to like that coworker, right? Like, let's say he has a coworker that he has a legitimate beef with. Is he like, you know what, I just can't deal with Susie. I can't stand her. She's obnoxious, she's rude, she doesn't do her job, she's lazy, and I just can't stand it. Or does he call her a bitch, or a cunt, or a whore, or imply that she only got her job by sleeping her way to the top? Anything that is misogynistic in nature is really strongly associated with abuse. So that's one that I would definitely look at. Here's another one that, again, I'm going to call it yellow flag. How does he feel about cats? And here's why this is interesting, because there have actually been studies that have showed a correlation between men who hate cats and men who abuse their wives. And that's because there is like a subconscious thing where it's believed that cats represent the feminine. And it's kind of controversial, but I do think it's true. Like when you meet men who really hate cats, and I don't just mean like, I'm a dog person, because I'm a dog person, but like they hate cats. They will throw something at a cat, shoot a cat, strangle a cat, just can't stand cats. Like would just assume hit a cat with their cars to swerve around it. Those men tend to hate women. Look it up. Look up the studies. There is a huge correlation between how men feel about cats and how men feel about women. So a man who actively hates cats it is a pretty bad sign. So look for all of these things. Look for small signs of control. Anything that involves control, anything that involves telling instead of asking, anything that involves trying to tell you how to run your life, how to dress, how to cut your hair, where to go, what people you can hang out with, when you can see your family, any attempts to isolate you from friends or family, any signs of jealousy whatsoever. I don't believe jealousy is healthy. Secure people don't experience jealousy like that. So does he want you to not spend any time with your guy friends? Does he want you to not have any guys on your social media? Does he get jealous of you mentioning a male coworker? Any small sign of control or jealousy, you need to look at that. Raising his voice. Now, I know men who yell who never go beyond yelling, but it's still something that I don't put up with. If you're going to raise your voice to me, I'm done. We're not going to argue and fight. We're going to have conversations. If he cannot take responsibility for his actions, if he tends to gaslight you and make everything about you, you're crazy, we're only fighting because you're dramatic, you're overreactive, anything in that mindset. There are guys who do that who aren't violent, but it is narcissistic in nature. And these are, as we're talking about, these are warning signs. These don't 100% correlate. They're things you need to watch out for. So my biggest piece of advice is to look at all of those things, and the minute something feels off, leave. Listen, leave. Are you looking at me? Leave. Don't think maybe it's going to get better. It never gets better. Don't think maybe, maybe I'm overreacting. You're not. Okay? Every single one of these abuse cases follows a pattern where they start with a verbal control, and then they go to verbal insult or verbal abuse, and then it goes to small acts of physical abuse, grabbing, shoving, things like that, and then it escalates. There is always escalation, okay? Nobody goes to sleep with Prince Charming and then gets punched in the eye the next day. It does not happen. It does not happen. There are always warning signs. And what happens is that people ignore them because they're so caught up in this relationship, and you can't do that. You need to be willing to walk away, because men are like buses. That's what I always say. If you miss this one, there'll be another one in a few minutes. So don't waste your time. Even if it's just yellow flag behavior and it never escalates, do you want to deal with that kind of behavior? Or would you rather have somebody who is a strict green flag person? Why are you wasting your time with a yellow flag person? Because now there's potential, okay? So again, I just want to make it really clear, no one deserves to have bad things happen to them. I'm not victim blaming people. I am saying practice risk management. I'm saying make smart decisions. I'm saying look at the people you're dating, look at their behavior, go slow, analyze. Don't get caught up in flattery and romance and all this type of things where you ignore reality, because this is how these people pull you in. Be a strong person. Be financially independent. Set your boundaries very strongly. I'm very funny about you don't tell me what to do. And I mean about anything, right? Like, you don't say, we're going to dinner Friday. You ask if we're going to dinner. You don't say, we're going to go to the movies. You ask if I want to go to the movies. Because those little tiny signs are actually really big indicators of how much men respect women. Okay, so please look at those things. Please stay safe. And please take care of yourself, guys. You can do this. I've got faith in you. Avoid these assholes.